Good evening, baseball fans. How you doing? It's been a little while. I don't even remember how to do one of these things. My goodness. We're talking spring training tonight. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking rule changes, players' health, position battles, rookies, extensions, you name it. How you doing, everyone? Good evening. Hello, hello, hello. Who do we got here in the chat? Who do we got? We got some moderators. Luke22 has just become a member for the 12th straight month. How you doing, Luke? Thank you for that. We got Zachary Goldstein. We got Stephanie Ojeda in the chat. We got a new fan. Hello, welcome. I appreciate you stopping by. We got Lane. How you doing? Orlando, Mason, Hirsch, Wolfpack, 1977, Lane Kerner. How you doing? How you doing? We got Nicholas here. Andrew Lee, another member in the chat. How you doing? How you doing? Who else we got? We got Frank in here. We got Silky. Who else we got? We got Tyler in here. How you doing, everyone? It's been a little while. When was the last time I did one of these? Like 3 weeks ago? It feels like 2 months ago. My goodness. Yeah, I'm back. It's good to be back. And, I've been dealing with a little bit of health stuff lately. I hurt my neck, and I kind of lost some strength in my right arm. So I've been trying to rehab that the last couple of weeks. So, and I just felt like too, kind of thinking about everything, over the last few years. It's been just a ton of fun over the last few years. But, sometimes you just need to take a break. You need to just kind of take a step back and kind of just breathe a little bit. 3 years have just flown by. And, just felt like I needed a bit of a break there. And there was really nothing going on anyway the last couple of weeks. But here we go. Spring training. Pitchers and catchers reported this past week. And position players, most of them are going to be reporting tomorrow. So I figured, why not go live tonight? And we're going to talk all about it. We got a super chat coming in. Conman752. How you doing, my friend? I know you're excited for the Orioles spring training. Happy 39 days of spring training. Only 39 days until the happiest day of the year when my O's take on your Red Sox on opening day. I'll tell you, opening day, there's just nothing like it. If you're a baseball fan, opening day is easily one of the best days of the year. Except the opening day that I went to back in 2018, right outside Tropicana Field in Tampa, got in a fender bender outside the stadium, didn't make it to the game until the fifth inning. The Red Sox were up 4-0. Everything was great. Chris Sale pitching his hiney off in that game. And, then Joe Kelly comes in the eighth inning, completely blows the game, and the Red Sox lose on opening day. I don't remember the last time I went to Tropicana Field and the Red Sox actually won a game. I'm pretty much a curse for the Red Sox at Tropicana Field if I go to the game. So I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to go back to Tropicana Field. I don't know. But opening day, absolutely amazing. Love opening day. It is easily one of my favorite days of the year. It's just something when you wake up that morning, it's like Christmas morning. It is absolutely fantastic. But everyone, we got to get to it here. But before I do get started, if you are new to the channel, think about subscribing down below. We're trying to get to 30K by opening day. So if you can hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely wonderful if you could do that. And everyone, you know how to do it. The like button, if you can, hit it, smash it, poke it. I don't know what the heck you guys want to do with it, but just hit it. The more likes we get, the better the algorithm likes it. So definitely hit it. Hit the bell notification. That way you know I go live every single time or I upload a video. We're getting back into the swing of things, everyone, so you got to hit that bell notification. That way you don't miss anything here on the channel. And hey, share the stream if you can. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Instagram. Share it on Facebook. Share it with your grandma down the road. Wherever the heck you want to share it if you can. But before I do get started with the show, I do have to go over tonight's sponsor, and that is BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from pro and college basketball to UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable, BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. Enough of me rambling. Let's get to it. Oh, another super chat coming in. Conman752. How you doing, my friend? Wasn't opening day, but early April 2006 or so at Camden was so cold they were handing out free hot cocoa, and we had to buy blankets from the store. I'll tell you, I went to Fenway back in, 2015 or 2016? I can't remember the year exactly. They were playing the Astros. It was in May. I live down here in Florida, and I was heading up to Massachusetts to go catch a game. And I didn't realize how chilly it was going to be because May here in Florida, it's a lot warmer. And I went to that game in just a t-shirt. I think I was wearing shorts. I don't know. I was freezing. I think I had about like 10 hot cocos. I'm not even kidding. I was dying. I thought I was going to die that day. But the Red Sox won that game, so it was worth it. And then I went to a game. It was AT&T Park in San Francisco at the time. Now it's Oracle. But I went there, I think it was 2006. I believe that was the year. And I remember it was like warm the whole day. It was like 75, perfect weather like the entire day. And at night, holy cow, it got so cold. Again, shorts. Was not prepared. So everyone, if you're going to a game, bundle up. So, Bacan Man, thank you for the super chats. Do appreciate that. But let's get to it, everyone. We're going to talk spring training. I'm going to go over rule changes. I'm going to go over rookies to keep an eye out for in spring training. Maybe even some extensions to look out for in spring training. Health of certain players, position battles. Spring training, it feels when you kind of get started with everything, it feels you kind of get 2 weeks in, you're like, all right, I'm kind of ready for opening day at this point. But there's always a lot to keep track of in spring training, so I'm going to do my best here to cover it all for you. So let's get to the first part here. Let's talk some rule changes. This has been a pretty big topic over the offseason, and it actually has been coming up recently. So let's get the music started. Do I remember how to run these streams? I feel rusty, man. I feel rusty. But let's get to it here. Here we go. So I'm going to go rule by rule here. Let's go with the pitch timer first. So 15 seconds with the bases empty, 20 seconds with runners on. That's going to be a much bigger deal than you might think, especially there's a certain handful of pitchers that I'm going to go over. They are really going to have to pick up the pace. I remember Josh Beckett with the Red Sox. This guy would take forever between his pitches, man. I love Beckett, man. Oh my God. In 2007 in that postseason, absolutely phenomenal. But man, that guy would take his time. So I don't know how he would do with these rule changes. But the hitter gets 1 timeout per plate appearance, must be in the batter's box with 8 seconds left. I wonder if they're going to be able to keep track of that. I don't know. I have to keep an eye on that. Pitchers get 2 disengagements, pickoff attempts, or step-offs per batter. Violations are a balk. So that is actually, I think, pretty interesting, especially when you got a fast runner on, and they're threatening to steal, and you only get 2 pickoff attempts. I'm just saying, man, I definitely think that's going to come into play. Limits on pickoff attempts led to 26% increase in stolen base attempts in the minors. I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you only got 2 pickoff attempts, absolutely. Guys are going to be way more aggressive out there. Pitch timer helped reduce game length by 25 minutes in the minors in 22. I do think the pitch timer is going to be a good thing. You know, especially when some of these games, man, they're going a long time. Red Sox, Yankee games, these games are always going long. And listen, hey, we're in, early 2023. We're at the point now where people are, you got to work a little harder to kind of keep their attention. And this is only going to help, in my opinion. But it is going to be interesting to see the results of how everything plays out. So, taking a look at pitch tempo here on StatCast. What is going on here? Here we go. So, we got some guys here that are definitely going to have to work on this. Kenley Jansen on my Red Sox. This guy takes his time between pitches, man. He's going to have to speed it up a little bit. Even Devin Williams, the closer for the Brewers. Good old Alex Colomé. He likes to take his time as well. Aroldis Chapman was another one. Let's see if that can, this guy's been struggling a lot for the last couple of years, going to the Kansas City Royals now. Let's see how he does. A lot of relievers, absolutely. You definitely see these relievers taking their time a little bit more. But there are definitely some starters out there. You got someone like a Blake Snell, even Shohei Ohtani. Hey, we all love Shohei Ohtani, but this is a guy that tends to work a little more on the slower side. He was in the top 20 when it came to, or the bottom 20, when it came to pitch tempo. So, guys like Zach Gallen, this is a guy who really broke out last year. Is that going to mess with him? Finally broke out last year. Can he keep it going? Having to move a little quicker. Someone like a Martin Perez on the Rangers, he really turned himself around last year. Had a great season. Lance McCullers Jr., this is a guy coming back. He's been dealing with some injuries now for feels like quite a while. Is that going to be any sort of a hindrance on him? We'll have to wait and see. But there are definitely a lot of guys out there. They're going to have to pick up the pace. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But let's get to the next one. We got the shift. That is a big one. The shift is a big one. 2 infielders must be positioned on either side of second base when the pitch is released. I understand the shift. I understand people do want to keep the shift around. But at the end of the day, it was getting a little silly. In my personal opinion on it, I would have rather have kept like where you could do it like 3 shifts per game, kind of like where you can have the challenges for the managers. They get like I can't remember the amount, but they get a handful of challenges per game. I would have liked the shift to stick around where you kind of use it more strategically, but they just got rid of it altogether. All 4 infielders must have both feet within the infield when pitcher is on the rubber. I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of players, listen, everyone is always trying to gain an advantage anywhere they can. So I wonder, there's going to be some guys, they're going to be trying to push it a little bit. We'll see how everything, are they going to be able to keep track of it? That's the one thing I'm, wondering is, are they going to be effective at keeping track of all of these rule changes? That's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I guarantee there will be times on Twitter where someone points out, oh, hey, this guy is, not in the right spot, and then they miss it, and everyone's going to, and it's going to, a game is going to end up getting determined, in some weird way, and someone's going to be out of position, and then everyone's going to be throwing their hands up, and, I could see it becoming an issue at times. So, again, I'm interested to see how much are the umpires really going to be on top of everything. I think they're going to try their very best, but hey, mistakes happen. Shift restrictions increased batting average and decreased strikeouts in the minors while giving players more opportunities to show off their athleticism. And that is why I do agree with really limiting the shift. Again, I would have liked for it, to stick around, maybe get a few per game. But I do think in the end, it's going to increase the popularity of the game. When guys are either just going, hitting a home run or striking out, it was boring. I'm just being real. I've watched this game for a long time, and it just got boring, man. So I definitely think it's going to make the game a bit more entertaining, and there are going to be some players that really benefit from it. If we take a look here at some of the stats, when it comes to the team leaderboards, last year, when it came to shifts against left-handed hitters, the Astros led the way 82.1% of the time they were shifting. My Red Sox were shifting a lot too. And we just had Michael Wacha signed with the San Diego Padres. Michael Wacha really benefited from that shift. And I'm not surprised at all that the Red Sox didn't bring him back. Chaim Bloom, hey, we all know he loves his discounts, but he loves his numbers too. That guy, instead of playing video games growing up, he was playing with Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. So I'm just saying, he saw it. I mean, I saw it. You know, I'm not saying I'm high and bloom, but Michael Wacha really benefited from that shift last year. So no surprise to me that the Red Sox didn't bring him back. So the Dodgers shifted very heavily. The Twins, Tigers were in the top 5. So the Astros are very interesting because starting pitching for them, even without Verlander, is very good. So let's see how different that's going to be. And hey, and the Red Sox as well. And they were not a good team last year, and they shifted a lot against righties. Now, if we take a look at it against righties, you don't see it as much against righties, but you do see it quite a bit. The Blue Jays, they shifted a lot against righties. The Dodgers were a heavy shifting team no matter what. So I'm very curious to see how they go about doing things. The Marlins, hey, they shifted a lot against righties. So I definitely think this is going to come into play with a lot of these pitchers. Conman752 with another super chat. My friend, you are absolutely amazing tonight. Guaranteed a game or two early on is lost when a pitcher gets called for a balk. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Taking too long or stepping off too much. Also, shift allowed for 3 to 5 batters per game would be a good compromise. Yeah, you know, I thought that was fair. You know, where you can use it more strategically. So, hey, thank you for agreeing with me, my friend. I'm glad. So, Bacan, man, I agree with you. I definitely think there's going to be a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Some growing pains with these rule changes. I mean, people are going to be really looking for it. People always want to look for mistakes wherever they can. And I guarantee mistakes will be made. And I guarantee there will be a game or two, like you said, that is going to get messed up. And someone's going to be like, hey, this guy was out of position. And, you know, it's just going to... There will be, I think, a couple instances where something is not going to get caught. Because players are always going to try and push the envelope. It's just the nature of the game, you know, just how it is. So, Bacan, man, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. But let's go to the leaderboards here when it comes to individual players. Now, when it comes to some players, they're really going to benefit from just the shift being eliminated. Now, if we take a look here at the leaderboards, when it comes to players with at least 250 plate appearances last year, Carlos Santana, absolutely abysmal with the shift. I mean, let's see how he does this year with the Pittsburgh Pirates. That definitely could be a bit of a boost for him. Rowdy Tellez was a guy who had a good year last year. He was horrible against the shift. Guys like Anthony Rizzo, Corey Seager, Jesse Winker, Kyle Tucker. I mean, Juan Soto. Look at Juan Soto, 15th in WRC plus when it came to hitting against the shift. He was so Juan Soto, in my opinion, because you see a lot of these guys, you know, where, you know, left-handed hitters where they get shifted on a ton. But Juan Soto is a guy you don't hear about so much because he's usually just very good all the time. But Juan Soto, he definitely struggled last year against the shift. Only hit 248 in those situations. So I think Juan Soto, look out for him, man. I think he's going to have a really big year. There's some other guys here on this list too. We got, you know, a guy like Alex Bregman. You know, Mookie Betts is on here. You know, I'm just saying. You know, you got some righty hitters on here that even didn't do well against the shift. So you're going to see a lot of these guys really bust out. I definitely think that's going to be a thing. Now, when it comes to pitchers, now I just put up, you know, versus left-handed hitters because you tend to see more shifts against the left-handed hitters a lot. It's not going to show the full picture, but just giving you an idea here. There are some pictures on here where their xFIP was not very good in these situations. Now, if you take a look here, someone like a Max Scherzer, his xFIP and FIP, they're more projected numbers than it's not like ERA. So it's not gonna give you the actual result of what happened last year. But according to projected numbers, Max Scherzer was not looking very good when it came to shift situations. Guys like Brandon Woodruff, Corey Kluber. You got some names here. Even Garrett Cole with a 5.83 xFIP when it came to left-handed hitters and pitching in the shift. So I think it's going to be really interesting on both sides where you're going to see some guys really get better, but then you're going to see some guys really regress as well. So I think it's going to be really interesting this year. I'm pretty excited to see how it all plays out. Now, if we take a look here, moving on, let's go to base running. Bigger bases. Now, it might not seem like a lot 15-inch bases, now going to be 18 inches at first, second, and third. I think the bigger bases, Alex Cora, he made a pretty funny quote saying they look like pizza boxes out there because they look that much bigger. When you've had the bases now, the size that they've been for so long, even a little change, you're going to be like, wow, that just looks way different. So it's going to be beneficial, I think, in a couple of ways. They mentioned here player safety. Of course, if you have more room, to try and slide into the base, maybe less likely for collisions to be happening. But also, I think it's going to be very beneficial for a lot of base runners out there. Now, if we take a look here at the leaderboards when it comes to guys that got caught stealing, Randy Arozarena led the major leagues last year with 12 times he got caught stealing. I mean, he's a guy that stole 32 bases last year, but could you maybe see Randy Arozarena approach that 40 stolen base mark? Who knows? I think Randy Arozarena, man, he is a guy, he has that 30-30 potential. He had 20 home runs last year, but I think he's going to be a lock to get at least 30 stolen bases once again. Ronald Acuna Jr., he got caught 11 times last year. He did steal 29 bases, but look for him, especially another year removed from the ACL injury that he had. So I think Ronald Acuna Jr., I think he's going to have himself a big year as well. Someone like Cedric Mullins, 10 times got caught stealing last year, Starling Marte as well. So I definitely think you're going to see a lot of guys benefit. We'll just have to wait and see how it all plans out. Now, one other thing that was mentioned, Conman, you mentioned the balks. Now, this was actually something this past week. Major League Baseball plans to properly enforce the balk rule for the 2023 season. There's a lot of guys when it comes to balks where they got some kind of wackadoodle things that they like to do with their delivery. Luis Garcia here in the picture. This is a guy, he likes to do the rock the baby thing. He's going to have to start cutting that out. And you got some other guys. Kevin Gausman is a guy. Mike Clevinger is a guy where they do some kind of, weird little things with their windups. So there's going to be definitely some growing pains, when it comes to, just kind of getting out of those habits a little bit. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think the rule changes, it's going to be different this year. And I think they might not seem big, but I think they are going to make quite a bit of impact in the long run. But I think overall, I think the game is going to be better with these rule changes. Sure, you can maybe make some arguments. Maybe you could have made maybe some more compromises somewhere, especially with the shift. I would have liked to have maybe seen a bit more of a compromise there. But either way, if I were to pick between having it and not having it, I would rather not have the shift, to be completely honest with you. Getting back to the shift as well. Guys like Joey Gallo. I think Joey Gallo is going to have a big year. And the Twins, if you remember, the Twins, they signed him early December. They were on him, man, and they really went after him while there were a lot of other guys on the board. They went after him before, obviously they were trying to bring back Carlos Correa, but they were aggressive with Gallo. I think he's going to have himself a big year, especially with the shift no longer around. So look out for Gallo, man. I think this is a guy, 30 home run kind of a guy. Look out. So let's move on. We got some guys who have been having some health issues, and I think you all know the big one out there, and that is Jacob deGrom. There's a lot of guys that I am going to be paying attention to when it comes to their health. So let's get to it. So Jacob deGrom is obviously the big one. We all know how good Jacob deGrom is. He is the best pitcher in the freaking galaxy when he is healthy. You hear that so much with Jacob deGrom, if healthy. But Jacob deGrom, this is a guy you got to pay attention. He was already kind of, they made him back off a little bit because he was having a bit of arm soreness. So they kind of, or not arm sore. I think it was something with his side. I can't fully remember. But, oh yeah, it was his side. It says right here. But said that he felt good during his workout. That was actually today, and he appears on track to continue his throwing program. Now, this is the one thing when it comes to this early in spring training. Listen, a lot of reporters out there, they're looking for news. It's even though, sure, pitchers and catchers have been reporting, it's still, there's a lot of slow news days, and any sort of an injury or some kind of a concern where a guy They have him stop throwing for a couple of days. It's going to be magnified a little bit because they're, reporters out there, they're trying to look for news where I really think it is kind of blown up a little bit, especially with deGrom. He was probably thinking, oh my God, my side is feeling a little sore. Oh my God, they're going to find out about this. It's going to be blown up. I think deGrom was thinking like, all right, whatever. I'm just a little sore. So when you got guys that are coming back from an off season, and even if they have been preparing in the off season, working out, training, throwing, there's something different about going to camp. This is something a little different. I'm not saying from experience, but I can just only imagine. There's a different feeling of maybe a little more adrenaline in the tank. You're kind of back in, at the complex. You're seeing everyone around. You're kind of pumping it up a little bit more when you get to spring training. So I think with deGrom, I think everyone, should just calm down a little bit with it. The good thing is this is side, right? I saw a lot of people being like, oh, here we go again with Jacob deGrom. It's like, come on, it's just his side here. It's not like I'd rather have that than his arm, or his, scapula or whatever it was, last year. So I think that's probably the best news that you could get with him. But there are a lot of guys definitely to keep an eye on. Chris Sale on my Red Sox. This guy's been having a lot of fluke injuries in the last couple of years. His thumb basically exploded at Yankee Stadium last year. So I'm always keeping an eye on Chris Sale. Going to see if he's going to be trying to tear down TVs in the, the clubhouse or whatever. I'm hoping that he's going to be fine. I do think, I can't predict how a guy's health is going to be, but man, I would think with Chris Sale, this is a guy, you got to think he's going to be all right this year. I hope. But got to keep an eye on him. Now, another guy, an interesting one, is Fernando Tatis Jr. He's going to be missing I believe, 20 more games. He got the 80-game suspension for testing positive for PEDs. And so I still think he has, 20 left to go. But this is also a guy who has been having injuries of his own, shoulder, falling off of his motorcycle or whatever the heck happened with him, hurting his wrist. I think he had to get surgery as well. Surgery on his left shoulder. So Fernando Tatis Jr., got to keep an eye on him. I do think in the end, I think it's going to be more of a positive moving to the outfield, I think. So, I don't know. I think just shortstop for him, I just think that it just seemed like it was too much on his body. So I think going to the outfield, I think it's going to be the better move for him long term. So definitely, even though he is suspended 20 more games, he is still allowed to go to spring training and participate in camp. So that's a guy you got to keep an eye out for. Hey, Carlos Correa. He was all over the news this past offseason. He was with 3 different teams this offseason. He was with the Giants, he was with the Mets, and then back to the Twins. So, but hey, there were a lot of people out there, kind of wondering what's going on with this guy's ankle. This is why he failed his physical with the Giants and with the Mets. There was actually, I read something that there was one doctor out there that said Carlos Correa's ankle was one of the worst ankles that he had ever seen. So, I don't know what doctor that was, but Correa, this is a guy where he got hurt at the end of last year. So this is a guy you got to keep an eye out for as well. I'm sure the Twins, they're going to manage him fine, but hey, keep an eye out. See if maybe there's maybe a couple of times where he's got to miss a game or two this spring. So Michael Conforto, speaking of the Giants, this is a guy who hasn't played in over a year. How's he going to be? This is a guy I'm really going to pay attention to. And I think Giants fans are going to be very curious. I think Mets fans are going to keep an eye on Conforto as well, former Met. He's a very interesting player this spring training. And I think for the Giants, if they could really get him back on track, you got these projections for him, but I don't know. Do we really know what he's going to do? He's been away. He's been hurt. So I'm interested to see how he does. Anthony Rendon, staying in California. This is one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball right now. And but man, if he can get back to his old ways with the Nationals, this is going to be a guy, man, he's going to be someone, this Angels team, man, they got to start winning. And he's going to be a big part of what they're trying to do, trying to get to the playoffs. So they need him back on track. But John Heyman reported a couple of weeks ago that he was feeling fantastic. So hey, what? Any good news with Anthony Rendon at this point? I had to, have his season cut short last year because of the wrist. So any good news with Anthony Rendon, I think, is going to be more than welcome with Angels fans. We got a couple of guys in the Twins rotation. We were just talking about the Twins with Carlos Correa, but they did trade for Pablo Lopez. I think that was an absolutely fantastic move. I think Pablo Lopez, this is a guy, I think he can take another step forward this year, and I think he's going to be really good for the Twins. But this is a guy, he has had some issues in the past. Sonny Gray, he's been dealing with some injuries over the last couple of years. So Kenta Maeda, this is a guy coming back. Had Tommy John. How's he going to be this year? I think Kenta Maeda is going to be fine. I think he's going to look like a 3 or a 4 in the rotation. I think he's going to be fine. But there are some concerns when it comes to the Twins health-wise in the rotation. Conman 752, where are you at? Felix Bautista having some issues right now with the knee and the shoulder. Expected to be game ready by mid-March. The Orioles this year, hey, they were a fun team last year. Exceeded expectations last year. But this is their closer. This was a guy who pitched really well last year. So if he's going to be having some issues this year, I think that could definitely be a bit of a concern for the Orioles. Staying in the AL East, Nestor Cortez. He's been having some issues with the hamstring. He's not going to be in the World Baseball Classic. Nestor Cortez, man. Hey, the Yankees, I mean, they're looking a lot. That rotation is looking a lot better with Carlos Rodon. So I think with Nestor Cortez, hopefully this guy stays healthy. To me, I find him to be more of a 3 or a 4 in the rotation. I would say more of a 3. But, hey, this is a guy they really counted on a lot last year, and hopefully he's going to be all right health-wise. And we got Mike Zunino on the Guardians. This is a guy who missed a lot of time last year, only 36 games with the Rays. He had some work done on his shoulder in the offseason, or late last season, can't fully remember. But this is a guy for the Guardians I think was a pretty underrated pickup for them. The Guardians needed power. And if Zunino, if he can get back to those power numbers, that's going to be a huge boost for that lineup. So everything is looking pretty good. According to the reports, Zunino, he's looking all right. But, hey, this is a guy to pay attention to as well. Mike Soroka. Man, when was the last time this guy pitched? 2020. He had 3 starts in 2020. We haven't seen Mike Soroka forever. I really hope this guy makes it back. And but he's been at spring. He's been having a little issues with the hamstring lately. But Mike Soroka, hey, you got Anderson in there as well. These guys are going to be going at it when it comes to the rotation. When we're looking at the Braves rotation as of right now. And I'm going to talk about some position battles here in just a little bit. But, hey, you got a pretty full rotation at the moment. Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Charlie Morton, Spencer Strider, and Fangraphs has Mike Soroka projected for the number 5 spot. But, hey, if this is a guy, if the injuries are going to keep piling on, I would imagine, with Anderson, you're probably going to see him in that spot. So, got to keep an eye on Soroka. I really hope he comes back. I feel extremely bad for the guy. Staying in the National League East, Sixto Sanchez. We haven't seen him forever. He was pitching in the 2020 playoffs there against the Cubs, and he was looking pretty good over there, in 2020. 7 starts, had a 3.46 ERA, 3.50 FIP. Man, guy throws absolute gas. So, but this is a guy who's been having a lot of issues with his shoulder. However, if we go take a look at Sixto Sanchez, he's a thick boy, man. He was thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, but he's lost a ton of weight. It looks like, I think it was almost 50 pounds that he lost. Let me see where I think it said that in this article. I think he's lost 46 pounds. Here we go. Skip Shoemaker. It's kind of up to him and his progression. He probably lost about 40-something pounds. Looks really good. But he has been throwing. So this is a guy, top prospect at one point, man. Look at him throwing against the Cubs here. I believe this was the playoffs. So it was in that wild card round. Look at Kyle Schwarber on the Cubs. But, yeah, hey, this is a guy to pay attention to. So definitely always got to keep track of the injuries. So moving on here, let's go to some position battles. In my opinion, I think the position battles are the most fun when it comes to spring training. You see more of the position battles when it comes to like bench spots, bullpen spots, but there's a couple of interesting ones out there. And I gotta say here, probably the Yankees they got the most interesting one, in my personal opinion, because you got 3 guys that could possibly end up being the starting shortstop for the Yankees. Let's share this screen. I just realized I shut the music off earlier. My apologies for that. Here we go. So going to the Yankees here on Fangraphs. Another one too, I wonder if left field could be a bit of a battle as well. Aaron Hicks, he looked absolutely abysmal last year. I think that's like one of the worst contracts in the game. He's not getting paid like a ton of money, but it's just the length of the deal. I wonder if Aaron Hicks, what's going to happen with him? I know they like his on-base abilities, but I don't know. Oswaldo Cabrera, could he end up winning more playing time in spring training? We'll have to see. But the most important position battle, in my opinion, is the shortstop spot. If I were going with a guy, I'm going with Oswald Peraza right now. This is a guy who I've been saying now for a couple of years, put this guy in. We were seeing him in the postseason last year, getting starts in the postseason. In my opinion, out of the 3 possible guys, Oswald Peraza, Kiner Falefa, as well as, wow, why am I going blank on the name? I'm going completely, what the heck is going on with my brain right now? Anthony Volpe, my God, what in the world? I just completely went blank. But out of the 3, I think Peraza, if it were me, I'd probably go with Peraza right now. Volpe is really interesting because he got off to a bit of a slow start last year, but he started picking it up halfway through the year. And obviously that's the future, man. And I'm not saying Peraza can't be a future player for the Yankees either. But to me, if you could have Volpe and Peraza up the middle, who knows what happens with Gleyber Torres. He's pretty good last year. But, man, that would be a pretty awesome up the middle spot. But Oswald Peraza, this is a guy, great defense, good speed. If he can just get the offense going, I think Peraza, he could be pretty decent. He did hit pretty well last year. 57 plate appearances is not a whole lot, but he hit 306. He had a 404 on base. Pretty solid numbers. So to me, out of those 3, I'm probably going with Peraza, and I'm keeping IKF on the bench. Because at least with IKF, he has that versatility where, but he's just not going to give you a whole lot with the bat. I think IKF is more of a bench guy at this point. And to me, I'm going to go with the ceiling of a Peraza. I think that's, why not? Yeah, he's young, 22, almost 23. But to me, I'm going with ceiling. I would even say his floor is better right now than IKF. So, but Volpe is really interesting. So let me actually pull up his numbers from last year. Again, got off to a slow start, but he ended up really picking it up. So taking a look here, his overall numbers with AA last year, when you look at batting average, it doesn't look amazing, and his slugging was down. But again, slow start, but overall, pretty solid. He had 18 home runs, 60 RBIs. He had 44 stolen bases last year. My God. In AA, he had 50 stolen bases in all of his time in the minor leagues last year. They ended up moving him to AAA. I think it might be a little soon to just give him the starting job. I think he is someone that you could see by the All-Star break. I think that's very possible, or maybe a little after the All-Star break. I think you will see Volpe at some point this year. My guess is that they start him at AAA. They go with Peraza at short, and IKF is going to be a guy that's going to be a bit more of a utility guy for them. He can move around. He can play short some days. He can play some third. I'm pretty sure he can play some second as well. I'd imagine he can play some second. He can even go play some catcher a little bit too. When it comes to IKF, I just think he could really be more impactful off the bench. So, yeah, he's played a little second base in his career. So, but now he's not going to be amazing at catcher, but he could go play catcher if you needed him to. So, to me, I'm going IKF on the bench. I'm going Anthony Volpe starting at AAA, and I'm giving Peraza the starting job at shortstop. That's just my own personal opinion. But we got some other position battles out there. When it comes to shortstop, the Atlanta Braves, you had Dansby Swanson, but he is no longer an Atlanta Brave. He's a Chicago Cub. So who's next in line? Well, you got Vaughn Grissom, more of a second baseman coming up through the minor leagues, but Vaughn Grissom, right now, he's looking like the future at short. He's been getting a lot of work at short this offseason. Basically, they're giving him the job. It's his job to lose, but you have someone like an Orlando Arcia, more of a veteran guy. He's going to be someone... He's not going to give you a ton of offense, but at least the glove should be okay with him. Well, when it comes to the defense of Orlando Arcia, now I don't know if he's really going to ever get back to these kind of numbers that he was putting up with the Brewers. Defensively, he had some good defensive numbers back in 2017, 2018. Last couple of years, not terrible, but not great either. But he also hasn't played a whole lot in the last couple of years. He has dealt with some injuries as well. But, that's a guy... He can be steady for you, but I think Vaughn Grissom, I don't even know if you really call this a position battle, but, with Grissom, young kid, if he has a bad spring, you could just always start him back at AAA. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think that is Vaughn Grissom's job to lose. Moving on here to the Mets, looking at third base. Right now, you had Carlos Correa as your third baseman. That would have completely answered that question completely. But Eduardo Escobar now, it looks like it is his job. But hey, you got someone like Brett Beatty down in the minor leagues where he got a cup of coffee last year. But could they go with him? I think you could go with both. You can kind of maybe share some time a little bit. But I think Beatty, who knows, if he has a good spring, he might force his way into the job. So that is one thing I think to pay attention to. Taking a look at the Cardinals. Hey, we got some outfielders here on the Cardinals where it's kind of a toss-up, I would say. Tyler O'Neill, he really struggled last year. You got Lars Nootbaar going to be playing for Japan in the World Baseball Classic, but this is a guy had some good advanced numbers last year. Dylan Carlson, not what people were expecting, but I think Dylan Carlson, there's just so much ceiling with him. I think you're going to see Tyler O'Neill, you're going to see Dylan Carlson, but there are some questions when it comes to right field. Lars Nootbaar, or could you maybe go with one of their top prospects, or probably their top prospect overall, Jordan Walker. Right now, Jordan Walker, he has been really good. And now, you're not going to see him at third. That they drafted him as a third baseman, but we got Nolan Arenado at third. You're not going to be moving him. This guy has been raking in the minors, man. I mean, look at the year that he had last year in Double-A. Over 119 games at 20 years old. This dude looks like he's already 30 years old. He is 20. And he looks like Jermaine Dye in the 2005 World Series. My God. But he hit 306 last year, a 388 on base, 510 slugging, 19 homers, 68 RBIs. He stole 22 bases. So this is a guy, if he has a good spring, it might be a little too soon. I think he will probably start at AAA, but who knows? A good spring, maybe he wins the job. So that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. The Phillies have a really interesting position battle in the rotation. Now, Bailey Falter, this is a guy, he had some time last year. However, Dave Dombrowski, he made some interesting comments early in the spring about a certain starting pitcher, Andrew Painter. This is a really interesting one because this is a guy, he is 19 years old, but in Double-A, he got a couple of starts in Double-A. He had 5 starts Double-A last year. He was striking guys out left and right, and he was barely walking anyone. He had 11, almost 12 strikeouts per 9 in Double-A, and he had almost half a walk per 9. That is a sensational strikeout to walk ratio. A 2.54 ERA, 2.60 FIP. Now, more scouting, could maybe some hitters maybe start to catch on to him a little bit, but he's got good stuff, man. He really blew up last year. He was in single A, both in low and high. He was dominating in A ball. They had to move him to Double A, even though he's just only 19. That's crazy. But Dave Dombrowski said, hey, this guy could win a job. I would love it. I would absolutely love that. A kid at 19 years old winning a rotation spot. That's crazy. I would love to see that. But last year, when it comes to Bailey Falter, I think it will be Bailey Falter in the end. You know, Dombrowski, he's even said he's had guys, you know, really young just go to the major leagues. I mean, if you got the stuff, why not? But Bailey Falter, he had 16 starts last year. 3.86 ERA is respectable, but he had a 4.65 FIP. So there's a bit of a question mark there. But I think Falter, you know, he's 25. I think that he will end up getting that. You go with Andrew Painter, probably start him off in AAA. But let's see how he does in the spring. You know, maybe they just start him off at AA again. But I think that would be really cool if he could win a job there. Taking a look here, moving on to the Toronto Blue Jays. Speaking of the 5th spot in the rotation, as of right now, Yusei Kikuchi is projected for the 5 spot. But I would imagine maybe some Blue Jays fans out there would rather see him in the bullpen, because if you take a look at the numbers last year, he was kind of atrocious. He had a 5.19 ERA over 100 innings. Now, I actually want to see, because I know he was in the bullpen. I can't remember how many appearances he made out of the bullpen. So he made 12 appearances out of the bullpen. Let me actually look at the splits when it comes to as a reliever. So as a reliever, he actually wasn't all that much better. He had a 4.91 ERA. So he's always been a starter. But they don't have any lefties in this rotation, so maybe they just end up going with him in the 5 spot. But then you got someone like a Mitch White as well. Right now, he is projected for the long relief role. If we take a look at his numbers from last year, he's actually dealing with some... What is he dealing with? He's dealing with some shoulder stuff, actually. So it says here he's still limited to long toss and is yet to throw off a mound as he completes his recovery. So I think already right there, you probably see Kikuchi has a bit of an advantage in that aspect. But Mitch White, his ERA was a 5.45 last year, but his FIP was a 3.87. So if he's healthy and if he can, that's what I'm wondering. I think he might have to, he's kind of working against, maybe a little bit against time, but he's got a little over a month. So who knows? Maybe he gets back to it. But if he hasn't thrown off of a mound by now, I don't know. So I think Kikuchi probably ends up getting it. But there is another guy to keep an eye on. I'm going to talk more about him in a little bit when I talk about some rookies. But you got some guys here. Don't forget about Nate Pearson. Man, he just completely disappeared. But we got a Ricky Tiedemann. We got a Ricky Tiedemann here. This guy, now, I don't think he is going to make it to the major leagues in the start of the season, but he was in AA last year, 4 starts. 2.45 ERA, 2.23 FIP. So, and he was invited to camp, non-roster invite. Who knows? Maybe he has an incredible spring. Maybe he kind of forces his way into that rotation. I don't know. I mean, it kind of very similar to Andrew Painter when it comes to age and performance. But maybe. I don't know. So we'll have to just wait and see on that. The Diamondbacks, you got a couple of guys in this rotation. Now, 1 through 4, I think, are set in stone. Gallen, Kelly, Bumgarner, Davies. But there are some younger guys. Right now, Fangraphs is projecting Ryan Nelson. Also, Andrew Chafin going to the Diamondbacks. I'm telling you, I think the Diamondbacks might be pretty decent this year. I think they could be the Guardians of last year, this year. I don't think anyone's really paying attention to the Diamondbacks, but they got a fun team. I love Andrew Chafin going to the Diamondbacks. I think that's fantastic. Well, when you got these 3 guys, or 4 guys, you got Chafin, Ginkel, you got Mantiply, and Melanson. I think that bullpen is actually looking a little decent, if you ask me. But taking a look at some of the starters here, you don't forget Dre Jameson. He had himself a pretty decent year last year, and over 24 innings, he had a 1.48 ERA. So he's definitely a guy that I think could win that spot. You got some other guys who got some innings last year. But, someone like a Tommy Henry, he had 47 innings last year. Not great numbers overall, 5.36 ERA. You got someone like a Tyler Gilbert. Hey, no-hitter at one point. So, right, yeah, he threw the no-hitter, right? Did he throw a no-hitter? Am I going blank? Did he throw a no-hitter? Did he? Or am I thinking of someone else? I have no idea. But taking a look here at the rotation, but Ryan Nelson, actually, let me pull up his numbers from he was good last year. He had 3 starts. It's a small sample, but I think Nelson and Jameson, that's a pretty interesting battle right there. There's another interesting one. I'll talk more about him in just a little bit. But as of right now in right field, it is projected that Gavin Sheets is going to be the right fielder. But don't forget about Oscar Colas, man. Oscar Colas, international signing from a couple of years ago. He has been doing pretty good in the minor leagues. And double-A actually, he went from high A to double-A to triple-A. He was fantastic in the minors last year. Double-A and high A is where he got the majority of his playing time. But double-A, he hit 306 with 14 homers. 364 on base, a 563 slugging. Man, and then AAA last year in, 7 games, he had a 424 on base, a 645 slugging. I think Oscar Colas is a guy, am I saying, is it Colas? Is it Colas? I don't know. But look out. Good spring, maybe wins the job. We got the Giants. We got Joey Bart. This guy was a top prospect at one point. The bat hasn't been quite there. The ability to handle pitchers hasn't really looked amazing up to this point. I do think it's going to be Bart's job, but don't forget they signed Roberto Perez as a non-roster invite. This is a guy, he's been very well known for his defense. So when taking a look at the catcher, you got Blake Sabol as well. Am I saying that right? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sabal? Is it Sabal? Might be Sabal. I don't remember. But last year, he hasn't been in the major leagues, but he hit pretty well in AAA last year. He had a 296 average at 426 on base, 543 slugging. The fielding isn't amazing, but you got a few catchers here in Giants camp. Maybe you got a bit of a battle there, but I think Bart is going to end up getting the majority of the playing time. Now, last but not least, let's talk about my Red Sox. And, I think you got some interesting ones here. Taking a look, you got a few spots when it comes to the Red Sox roster. It could be interesting, and I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on health. James Paxton, we haven't seen this guy really pitch at all in the last couple of years. But by the looks of things, it's looking okay. He's throwing. He threw a bullpen session a couple of days ago. And they've already said, they don't really see him in the bullpen. So I would imagine a rotation spot is his to lose. I've been seeing people talking about maybe putting Pivetta in the bullpen. I don't know about that. I think Pivetta is a guy who's going to give you innings. I think you got to keep him in the rotation. Kluber, obviously, he's going to be in the rotation. Obviously, Sale, he's going to be your opening day guy. Garrett Whitlock moving to the rotation. I think a lot of people still out there, they would like for him to be in the bullpen. But with Whitlock, I think he showed some promise in the rotation last year. But I think give him a full spring. He's healthy. He was having some problems with the hip. He got surgery on it. But I think he's coming to spring, working as a starter. I think he's going to have a rotation spot. They want him to be a starter. But there are some other possibilities. We got Tanner Houck, where I think he is going to be in the bullpen, personally. I think he's a guy, he can kind of come in. He's like your utility knife. He can come in long relief. He can do a spot start. He can be in setup. He can close a game if you need him to. I think Tanner Houck, he's going to be the guy, kind of like the Andrew Miller minus the starting. Andrew Miller didn't start when he was good, obviously great in the bullpen. But Andrew Miller is a guy, he could come in multiple spots out of the bullpen, no matter what the inning. I think Houck could be that kind of a guy. He's very flexible in that way. And you got someone like a Brian Bayo. The projected numbers with Bayo last year did look really good. He had a couple outings where he looked fantastic. However, with Bayo, I talked about, people like to kind of blow up the injuries a little bit. There was something with Bayo. He cut short the throwing the other day. He was feeling something in the forearm. That's always a bit, you don't ever like hearing that. But Bayo, to me, I think this is a guy, if he's healthy, if he's good, I think you got to give him a rotation spot, to be completely honest. I mean, I'm just saying. He's that good. And I think this is a guy, get him a spot every fifth day in that rotation. There's no point for him to be in AAA at this point. I wouldn't put him in the bullpen. To me, I want this guy to be working as a starter. So there's a lot of options. It's funny because the Red Sox, there's a lot of question marks with the rotation. But there's a lot of depth at the same time. It could just easily work itself out. But that is something to keep an eye on when it comes to the closer. Kenley Jansen's going to be the closer. That's why they brought him in. I do think there are a couple of spots here with the Red Sox when it comes to, backup roles. I think, you brought in a Jorge Alfaro. He's shown some power, but he has a good arm. He can throw some runners out. So I think he's a little intriguing. I wonder, Connor Wong. I mean, you got Connor Wong there. I would think they probably want to give this guy more time now in the majors. But Reese McGuire, I do think is going to get the majority of the playing time because his defense is just so good. But you got Rob Refsnyder on the bench, and I really liked him last year. But can Jarren Duran come in? He struggled last year. He showed glimpses of being really good, but for the most part struggled. Can he win a spot? You brought in a Yu Chang as well. You brought him in, so I would imagine he's going to be kind of one of your utility players off the bench. Can someone like a Ceddanne Rafaela, really, or I always forget how to pronounce the first name. Is this Ceddanne? I can't remember how to pronounce it. I'm bad with names. But Rafaela, to me, he showed a lot of promise in the minor leagues last year. I wonder if he has himself a crazy spring. I wonder if he could end up maybe winning a spot. I probably not. I would think they probably want to give him some more time in AAA. You got someone like a Raymond Tapia as well, non-roster invite. But it's going to be interesting. The Red Sox, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out in spring training. And you got the Cubs too. You got some Kyle Hendricks. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be ready for opening day, I believe. I think he had something with the shoulder. So I would imagine probably Marcus Stroman is going to get that opening day nod. But you got some younger guys, younger pitchers with the Cubs. They're going to be looking to win a rotation spot. I think it's going to be interesting when it comes to some position battles here in the spring. Let's move on. So I did mention some rookies. Let's talk about some rookies. Let's talk some rookies, shall we? And there are some interesting ones out there. There are some interesting ones. And the one guy, as you see in the picture here, I'm looking at Grayson Rodriguez, man. I'm looking at Grayson Rodriguez. And to me, I was really excited to see him last year. And he had the lat injury. We just couldn't see him. But I think, man, oh man, man, if he's healthy, and I think you just put him on the opening day roster. Whatever he even does in the spring. Could you start him at AAA and kind of just get a couple of starts in? Sure. But, man, I want to see what this guy can do. He's been phenomenal. I mean, look at the numbers that he had in AAA last year. 14 starts, 2.20 ERA, 2.04 FIP. I mean, come on. I mean, look at the strikeout to walk ratio. It's fantastic. I think you got to put this guy in the major leagues at this point. Could you maybe do a couple of starts at AAA, depending on where he's at, with the lat? Sure. I think that could be appropriate. But I would love to see what he could do. I talked about Ricky Tiedemann earlier. If he has an amazing spring, I wonder if he could force his way into that rotation with the Blue Jays. I think that could be pretty interesting. We got someone like a Curtis Mead on the Rays. Last year, he hit really well in the minors. Double-A, over 56 games, he hit 305, a 394 on base, 548 slugging. He hit well in AAA as well. 278 average, 376 on base, 486 slugging. Overall, had 13 home runs. This is a guy to keep an eye out for. The Rays, they always like to do some interesting things. So, Sal Frelick on the Brewers. This is a guy who hit really well. Double-A, hit 317. Triple-A, he hit 365. Could this guy win a spot? If he busts out in the spring, man, I think, who knows? This is a guy he's not going to have a lot of power, but he hits for average. He's got speed. The fielding isn't maybe amazing, but hey, the Brewers, they like to do some outside the box things, so maybe Sal Frelick could be a guy that could win a spot. Francisco Alvarez on the Mets, we saw him a little bit last year, 5 games. They gave him a shot, but when it comes to the Mets, they got a lot of catchers at the moment. I wonder, if he ends up just starting the year at AAA? I actually think I saw something. It said here, according to Abby Mastracco of the New York Daily News, will likely begin the season at AAA, but who knows? Maybe he does really good and ends up winning a roster spot. But you do have Omar Narvaez. You got Thomas Nido. You know, you traded James McCann, so he's not there anymore. But probably Francisco Alvarez probably starts at AAA last year. How many games? He had 45 games at AAA. He didn't hit amazing there. He hit 234. He had a 382 on base. He hit for a lot of power last year. He had 27 home runs in the minors. He had 78 RBIs overall. So maybe you could have a little bit more time at AAA, just kind of work on the bat. Maybe just kind of shore up some things defensively. Maybe you see him by the All-Star break. If Omar Narvaez is doing that bad, maybe you could end up just shifting to a Francisco Alvarez, give him the green light. But who knows? Again, good spring. Maybe he forces his way onto the Major League squad. And I already talked about these guys earlier. Andrew Painter. I think that's a really interesting one. Definitely keep an eye out for that. We got Oscar Colas. Absolutely. This dude. I mean, can you imagine Luis Robert? I don't even know. I see people say either way. I don't even know. Is it Robert? Is it Robert? I don't even know. But could you imagine these two guys in the outfield? That'd be incredible. That'd be incredibly fun. I mentioned Brett Beatty. I mentioned Anthony Volpe. So there's definitely some interesting rookies out there this spring training. Keep an eye on. I'm probably missing a few, but last but not least, let's talk extensions. Now, Bryan Reynolds, I got a picture of Bryan Reynolds here. Now, he's been more in the news for, looking for a trade, requesting a trade. He actually did talk to some reporters at spring training. I believe he showed up a few days ago. But they're, still, who knows? Maybe if the Pirates end up saying, all right, we got to keep this guy around, let's talk extension. I mean, Ben Cherington said the door is going to be open if they want to talk extension. I would imagine he's probably going to end up getting traded. Could he get traded this spring? I think they hold on to him until the trade deadline, personally, because I think you want to try and maximize his value. And at the trade deadline, teams looking for a bat. I think Bryan Reynolds is definitely a guy that would be a hot commodity. He's been in the trade rumors now for what feels like forever. So look out for, could they somehow, some way, surprisingly come to an agreement on an extension? I wouldn't count it out. He did make some comments, like I said, where it seems like both sides are kind of disagreeing on, what his value is. So I don't know. It's interesting. I like these players. I tend not to. I guess in the past I've been more on the side of like, I don't know if it's really a great thing to talk about contract stuff. In a way, it's just so intriguing when a guy talks about like trade rumors and contract. I find it intriguing. But Aaron Nola, this is actually a couple of days ago, according to Matt Gelb of The Athletic, the Phillies and the representatives for Aaron Nola have been talking about a possible contract extension. This guy's going to be a free agent. Aaron Nola is really good. I think Aaron Nola is extremely underrated. This is one of the top pitchers in baseball last year, and he's a free agent after this year. I think that's crazy. I would imagine the Phillies would want to keep him around. I mean, let's take a look at the numbers. I mean, come on. What else is there to say? People are going to, see the wins and losses 11-13, but this is a guy, man. He's pitching in the World Series, over 200 innings, 32 starts. This guy's durable. Every year, he's just giving you starts. He's extremely durable. I wonder, how he's 29. I wonder if Aaron Nola, by the end of his career, if he stays durable like he is, I wonder if he could be a possible Hall of Famer. If he keeps putting up these numbers consistently every year. I mean, he's got good strikeout numbers in his career. He's had 10 strikeouts per 9, 2 walks per 9. I wonder, man. I wonder if he could end up being a Hall of Fame candidate down the road, if he keeps doing this for the next, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Who knows? But definitely keep an eye on that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see all of a sudden that they've come to an agreement on an extension. So another interesting one. This was actually a report today. Manny Machado, over the weekend, it was looking like, I guess today they refuted some reports where, according to, or what kind of a contract he was looking for. But I mean, there's been some reports in the past couple of days. I mean, we've known this for quite a while now, where it's looking like he's going to probably opt out of the contract after this year and become a free agent. But could the Padres, approach Machado and be like, all right, we want to keep you around. We're going to offer you, let's rework this contract a little bit. But there was a report today that he was seeking 10 years, $400 million. But there was a source that said it was incorrect. I don't know, man. I'm always a guy. When there's smoke, there's fire. But it's not known specifically what Machado is seeking or whether his camp made a counter offer to the Padres' offer to add 5 years and $105 million to his existing contract. So with Machado's February 16th deadline having passed, it seems his impending return to the free agent market will be a storyline throughout this highly anticipated Padres season. Now, sure, there's a deadline, but it's spring training. Maybe they can rework the deal. That's something to keep an eye out for. The Astros, you got a ton of guys. Right now they're in their arbitration years. Well, Bregman's on a contract, but guys like Kyle Tucker, you got Framber Valdez there. Look out. I mean, they just signed Christian Javier to an extension through 2027. I think someone like Kyle Tucker, Valdez, or maybe even both. Jeremy Pena, too. Maybe they could do, kind of what happened with Julio Rodriguez. Jeremy Pena, maybe they just give him a long-term deal. They want to make him an Astro, for the next 10, 12 years or something. So I think there's some interesting candidates here with the Houston Astros. Keep an eye out for that. We got Bobby Witt Jr. They've been wanting to sign Bobby Witt Jr. to an extension for a while now. This is a report back, September 25th. Royals GM says the team is interested in a long-term contract extension. Kind of the same thing as, Julio Rodriguez. I mentioned with Jeremy Pena. Could you do something with Bobby Witt Jr.? I think they got to keep this guy around, long-term. I think that would be the smart move. We got the Cubs. There was talks about Nico Horner, maybe a long-term extension this past winter. Ian Happ as well. So look out. Ian Happ, I thought, was a guy that could have gotten traded last year, but he stuck around. So have to wait and see. Shane Bieber, he's going to be a free agent in a couple of years. There was maybe some murmurs this past offseason that could he be a trade candidate. I think that was more people trying to talk it into existence, if anything. The Guardians, if they want to win, I think you got to keep Bieber around. But at the end of the day, if he is going to be a free agent in a couple of years, and you're not going to sign him to an extension, I mean, especially the way this market is for starting pitchers. Starting pitching is a hot commodity, and Shane Bieber is a good starting pitcher. I would imagine teams would be lining up for Shane Bieber. We got Max Fried. So he actually talked a couple of days ago right here where, what is going on here? So he has said it's something we will talk about. So Max Fried, it seems like he's the only guy that hasn't got an extension with the Braves. So, hey, don't be surprised if you see something with Max Fried staying in the NL East. Pete Alonso, he kind of stayed away from the contract talk. He basically said no comment when someone asked him, if they had been talking about a possible extension. All he said was that he was really happy to be a Met. So that's another one to keep an eye out for. Could you see a contract, an agreement there? It's very possible. So there's a lot to keep an eye on this spring, folks. There's a lot to keep an eye on. We got position battles. We got health of players. We got maybe some contract extensions. Could you maybe see some trades? We got Max Kepler. I talked about Bryan Reynolds. Could you see a Bryan Reynolds trade? Probably not. I think that'll happen more if it does happen at the deadline. But there's definitely a lot to keep an eye on. The rules when it comes to the actual games themselves, I am pretty interested to see how these rules are going to... I talked about there's going to be some growing pains. I think spring training is obviously going to be the spot to work, trying to get these growing pains out of the way. Spring training obviously does not count, so I would think try and work out the kinks with these rules in spring training. So I'm just interested to see how these rules play out, these rule changes play out, how players adjust. I think there's, I mentioned players, when it comes to the shift, the pitch clock, the bigger bases, how do they look when it comes to, these certain rule changes this spring? The box as well. So there's a lot to keep an eye out for, everyone, when it comes to spring training. And I think this is going to be one of the more interesting spring trainings in recent memory. Usually it's kind of just something you want to just get through. But I think there are some interesting things to keep an eye out for. So I'm excited. I love it. We're not fully into, spring training mode. We're not going to be seeing games here for another week, I think. I think there are going to be some games next week. No, not this coming week, but I think the week after that. So I'm excited. Spring is in the air. I'm excited, everyone. And I know you're all excited too. Everyone, I want to thank you for coming to tonight's stream. I want to thank you for stopping by. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've done something live. Again, dealing with some health stuff. I hurt my neck. So I had to take the last couple of weeks to work on that. And just needed some time off. The last 3 years, I've been going hard in the paint when it comes to just the channel itself, and it's been amazing, the ride that it has been. But there's times where you just gotta take a break. But it's good to be back. It's good to be talking to all of your friendly faces once again. And we're ready to start kicking it back up, everyone. I hope you're all excited for it. Before you do get out of here, if you can, hit that like button for me. Hit the bell notification on your way out. Share the stream. And if anyone is still new in the chat, think about subscribing down below. We're trying to get to 30K by opening day. Everyone, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by. And as always, I'll talk to you next time.